Welcome to Beyond the Call, where history, leadership, and heroism come alive. Today's story explores Corporal Arthur O. Beyer near Arloncourt, Belgium, in 1945, a powerful account of courage and responsibility in combat. If you enjoy learning more about military history and extraordinary individuals, you can find more articles, podcasts, and resources at trackpads.com. In the deep winter of that year, the Battle of the Bulge was shifting from desperate defense to hard-driving counterattack. Along one narrow Belgian road, snow-packed and lined with hedgerows, an armored task force of the United States Army pushed toward a low ridge that dominated the countryside around the village of Arloncourt. Before we continue, I want to mention the Medal of Honor book series that accompanies this work. These books tell the stories of America's Medal of Honor recipients in a serious, readable, and historically grounded format, with each volume focused on a specific campaign, battle, or part of the war. They are available in color paperback, Kindle ebook, and matching audiobook editions. You can find them at militaryauthor.me. The morning air was cold and heavy, with low clouds pressing down on the snow-covered fields. Tanks and tank destroyers rolled forward in column, engines rumbling, crews scanning the tree lines and hedges for any hint of movement. When the ambush came, it was sudden and violent. Anti-tank guns opened from hidden positions along the crest, their shells exploding near the lead vehicles and sending plumes of snow and shattered earth into the air. Machine guns and rifles joined in, turning the open approaches into a killing zone and forcing the column to a halt on the worst possible ground. Inside one of the lead tank destroyers, Corporal Arthur O. Beyer worked his 76mm gun, searching for the weapon that was tearing at his comrades. Through the haze of smoke and flying snow, he picked out a machine gun nest dug into the defensive line along the ridge, roughly 200 yards to the front. With practiced calm, he swung the gun, adjusted his sight, and fired. The round smashed into the position, silencing the weapon and killing one member of the crew. Beyond the Call is the Monday feature of Dispatch, U.S. Military History magazine. In many stories, that would be the end of his part in the fight. Beyer had already done his job as a gunner, knocking out a key weapon that had held up the advance. But he could still see movement in the ruined emplacement as surviving enemy soldiers tried to recover. There were no infantry close enough to rush the crest, no one else in position to clear the nest before it came back to life. He knew that every moment of delay meant more danger for the men still pinned below the ridge. He decided that staying behind armor was no longer enough. Beyer climbed down from his vehicle and stepped out into the open snow, fully exposed to the enemy watching from the crest. The distance between the road and the ridge offered almost no real cover, just low drifts and shallow depressions. He started forward anyway, a single soldier advancing under rifles and machine guns that were now free to track his movement. Each yard put him deeper into the enemy's field of fire, but he did not turn back. When he reached the damaged machine gun position, he closed on the stunned survivors and captured them, removing their ability to rejoin the fight. While still on the forward slope, Beyer saw another machine gun further along the line, roughly 250 yards to his left, still raking the American column with bursts of fire. Rather than withdraw to safety, he turned toward this new threat and began a second advance. The ground here was even more exposed, and the defenders now understood that a lone American was moving inside their line. Fire thickened around him as bullets snapped through brush and kicked up the snow at his feet. Using what little shelter the terrain provided, he worked his way close enough to attack with hand grenades. A grenade into the emplacement killed one crew member, and Beyer rushed in to capture the others. At that point, he had already done far more than anyone could have asked. Yet Beyer continued along the crest on what the official Medal of Honor citation would later describe as a self-imposed mission. For roughly a quarter of a mile, he moved from foxhole to foxhole, confronting German soldiers in their individual pits and small clusters. Sometimes he fired his carbine at close range. At other times, he used grenades to break the will of defenders who had chosen the ground and believed they controlled the ridge. Each short rush between bits of cover meant new exposure, but he kept going. By the time he made his way back toward the American positions, the shape of the fight had changed dramatically. Beyer had personally destroyed 2 machine gun positions, killed 8 enemy soldiers, and captured 18 more, including 2 bazooka teams that had been poised to threaten the armored vehicles at close range. The belt of fire that had stopped the task force was now riddled with gaps. The ridge, once a solid German defensive line, had been cracked wide open by the actions of a single determined corporal. The armored force could move again, and with movement came renewed momentum. To understand how a man could make that choice and keep pressing forward under such danger, it helps to look back at the life that brought Beyer to that ridgeline. He was born on May 20th, 1909, in Rock Township, Mitchell County, Iowa, a quiet landscape of farms, dirt roads, and close communities. Growing up there meant long days of hard work and a steady rhythm of family, church, and chores that did not pause for bad weather. That kind of life builds endurance more than drama. It teaches people to keep going when work is difficult and the rewards are slow to appear. By the time the Second World War reached its height, Beyer was in his early 30s, older than many of the young soldiers he would serve alongside. When he joined the United States Army, he brought with him years of responsibility and experience. The Army trained him as a tank destroyer gunner and assigned him to Company C of the 603rd Tank Destroyer Battalion. Tank destroyers were fast, lightly armored vehicles designed to counter enemy armor with powerful guns, relying on speed, positioning, and the skill of their crews. Beyer learned to read terrain quickly, judge distance under pressure, and coordinate with his crew so that every shot counted. The official Medal of Honor citation for his actions near Arloncourt uses formal phrases that carry specific meaning. When it speaks of conspicuous gallantry, it means that his courage was not hidden or routine. Other soldiers could see him climb down from his vehicle, cross open snow under direct observation, and press his attack along the ridge. The phrase withering fire refers to sustained, accurate fire that can strip the strength from an attacking force if no one breaks the pattern. A self-imposed mission means he was not ordered to clear that quarter mile of positions. He understood that the entire task force remained in danger as long as the defenders held their ground, and he chose to act on that understanding. The citation also notes that his actions eliminated the German defense line and enabled his task force to gain its objective. In practical terms, that meant more than numbers on a page. By destroying weapons, killing some defenders, and capturing others, Beyer broke the backbone of the position that had pinned the American column. The vehicles on the road could resume movement, change their angles of approach, and continue their push into ground the enemy had meant to hold. The difference between a stalled advance and a successful move forward often rests on a few key decisions. In this case, one of those decisions belonged to a single corporal. Why this mattered reaches beyond the immediate ridge and road. In January 1945, every cleared village, intersection, and ridgeline in Belgium helped push German forces back from their last major offensive in the West. A tank destroyer battalion could not decide the entire war, but it could decide whether a route stayed open for follow-on units, whether pressure on the enemy held steady, and whether American forces kept the initiative. Beyer's actions ensured that at that moment and in that place, the attack did not stall in front of a prepared defense. His courage helped keep the wider offensive moving. There was also a powerful effect on the men who watched the ridge from below. They knew how exposed they were and how dangerous the fire had become. Seeing one of their own leave cover, stride into the snow alone, and methodically break apart the positions that held them down, did more than change the map. It changed how they felt about their chances. Visible courage can steady a unit in ways nothing else can match. Had Beyer stayed behind armor and no one else found a way to break the line, the column might have been forced to fall back and accept more casualties. His decision gave them a way forward. Beyer's story also speaks to enduring themes of leadership and character that reach beyond rank. Initiative is one of those themes. He recognized that the task force could not remain in place under fire, and that no one else was in position to act quickly enough. Responsibility is another. As a gunner, he had already fulfilled his formal duty by engaging and destroying enemy positions from his vehicle. His choice to dismount and advance alone across the snow was something more. It was a deliberate decision to accept additional risk for the sake of his comrades and the mission. Determination under sustained danger completes that picture of character. Beyer's courage did not flash and fade in a single moment. After he reached the first position and captured its survivors, he kept going. He then attacked a second machine gun under heavier fire and continued along the ridge to clear more foxholes. That pattern of repeated, conscious choices under threat is what marks his actions as extraordinary. For people who study or practice leadership today, his example offers a reminder that real leadership often appears in quiet, steady decisions made far from microphones or cameras. After the war, Arthur O. Beyer returned to the same Midwestern world that had shaped him before the conflict. Like many veterans, he carried memories of danger and loss that were not always visible on the surface. The Medal of Honor he received recognized the specific actions near Arloncourt, but it did not define every part of his life. He joined the long line of men who went overseas, faced terrifying moments, and then came home to resume lives that seemed ordinary to those around them, yet were marked forever by what they had seen and done. Today, his name appears in the rolls of Medal of Honor recipients and in the histories of the 603rd Tank Destroyer Battalion. It lives in hometown remembrances from Iowa and in the broader story of the winter fighting in Belgium. Visitors who walk through museums, read about the Battle of the Bulge, or explore lists of decorated soldiers find his story among many that shaped the outcome of the war. Gravesites, local memorials, and quiet acknowledgments at commemorations serve the same purpose. They keep his memory alive as more than a line in an official document. When we reflect on Arthur Beyer's advance along that snowy ridge, we are reminded that great campaigns often turn on decisions made by individuals in moments of extreme pressure. One man left the relative safety of armor, crossed open ground under fire, and refused to stop until the line that threatened his comrades no longer existed. His actions near Arloncourt changed the course of a single battle and earned the nation's highest award for valor. His example continues to speak to courage, initiative, and responsibility in the face of fear, and it invites each listener to remember the human stories behind the maps and timelines of war.